maybe I would tell my high school self, like, everything works out. Like, you don't need to have everything figured out, because I do remember, like, being a junior or senior in high school, everyone's like, what do you think you're going to major in? Or where do you think you're going to go to school? And you just don't know. But I
Yeah.
feel like you shouldn't pressure yourself to know, because yeah, at that age, like, you are so young. I can't imagine going back now and having to try to make those types of decisions.
Welcome to the Patient to Professional podcast. My name is Dr. Nick Despotidis, and I've had the privilege of examining thousands of children through the years that are now remarkable adults. Today with me is my long-term patient, Caitlyn Vu. Caitlyn has been my patient for over a decade, and she's here to talk to us about her career as a CPA. Caitlyn, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dr. D. I appreciate
Well, I
it.
appreciate you. So, why don't you tell us what does CPA stand for? What does your typical day look like so the people listening can get an idea of what you do for a living?
Yeah, so kind of like you mentioned, I'm a certified public accountant in New Jersey, and my current role right now, so I'm a senior financial analyst in the revenue recognition and analytics department at Quest Diagnostics, which I'm sure lots of people have heard of. It's basically a lab testing company.
Sure.
But for my role specifically, so I'm a true accountant, industry accountant, and so a lot of what I do is during what we call like a close period or a month-end close. And that's typically when I'll perform a lot of analyses in order to get comfortable on how we're estimating revenue, patient price concession, disallowance, and like related AR reserves. So I would say typical day for me, I have to kind of break it up into two. So like for close, we're very busy. Like I'm working.
Close mean the end of the month?
Yeah. So like, for example, February close, we would perform like the first couple days of March. So typically for me, the first 2 business days of March, I'm very busy, like working pretty late. And again, this is for us to, perform whatever analyses we need to perform to get comfortable over how we're doing our estimations. And then on day 3 and 4, which is still part of close, that's a lot of me doing presentations to like our regional business partners, commercial finance team, as well as presenting to like my controller and director on my own team. And then,
Wow.
yeah,
So,
after that, yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
Well, let's unpack a lot there. First of all, you
Mhm.
used a lot of abbreviations that I caught some of
Yeah.
them, like AR. Why don't we slow down a little bit? You definitely work from spreadsheets. Do you work from home or do you go into the office?
Yeah. So I guess typical day. So most of the time, 3 days out of the week, we're working from home. And then 2 days, usually we'll go into the office. But if it's during close when we're really busy, we'll usually work from home because it's not very safe to have people working late and driving home after. So
Sure. And then what are these numbers, the abbreviations, AR and all sorts of
yeah,
statistics you keep up? A little,
yeah,
just a very superficial explanation for any high school or college students listening.
yeah. So I'm sure again, everyone knows what revenue is. And then we look at accounts receivable as well. So let's say I'm gonna try to explain. I don't want to like give too much
Well,
detail.
let's say I give blood and my insurance doesn't cover my
Mhm.
blood test in full, then
Yeah.
I owe you money, correct? Is that
Yes.
an
Like,
accounts receivable?
yeah, well, I'm trying to think of it in the way of my company, it's a little bit different because like when we're, I guess in that sense, if we're explaining the situation, like we obviously bill you like as a patient at full list price, but we also have to do some estimation because we know, like, for example, we're not going to get that full list price that we billed you at. So there's the potential, right, that we'll have to write off, meaning like, okay, we're not going to get this money, potentially this amount of money from you. And then that helps us kind of estimate, yeah, like what our revenue might be. And then
Wow.
our accounts receivable. So we'll have to do some like adjustments there. But essentially,
Yeah. As
the
doctors, we do that actually. It's very
yeah,
similar. So you're actually forecasting
yeah,
how much you may get at the
yes,
end of each month. You're forecasting it.
yes,
So
yes,
you're doing not only what physically people owe you, but what you really think you're going to get.
yes. We're really at the end of the day estimating what we think we're going to collect on what we build out.
So
So
that's interesting. So you have to take
yeah,
into a lot of account. It's like some people don't pay at all.
yeah, exactly. Some people don't pay at all because I know, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I think there's like a law now that you can't be like sent to collections for unpaid medical bills. So a lot of the
Oh,
times, a lot of people
goodness.
do. end up knowing that and we don't end up getting paid. So
Oh,
that's
that's a
why,
terrible thing, I
yeah, a
guess.
lot of the times we have pretty high write-offs. So
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, okay. But then you said something interesting. Once you get all this data, which I'm saying you're part of a team, correct?
Yes.
You have to present it to a lot of people, right?
Yeah. We have like regional business partners. So I work specifically for I guess what we call the Great Midwest region. So I do a lot of the estimations for like the Midwest states. And we have to present that to our regional business partners, which are people, I guess, more finance heavy, so that they can perform their forecasting budgeting process. So we have to present, again, our estimations to
So
them.
you do this via Zoom?
Yeah, usually we do this over like Microsoft Teams.
Okay. And then was this your first job out of college?
No, so I think, like I worked first in auditing at Ernst Young. I did that for 2 years. So I started that like September of 22, and then I left around, I think, October of 24. I had maybe a couple months of like senior experience because when I was at that job as well, I had ended up getting like early promoted. So that kind of helped me a lot with my job now, especially. So
That's great. So we'll talk about your job, but so at Ernst Young, it's a huge accounting firm, isn't it?
yeah, very large.
Very, very, very large. And tell us what's the difference between an accountant and a certified public accountant, and what prerequisites were needed for you to become a CPA? Because there is
Yeah.
a big difference.
Yes. So I'll talk first about prereqs for CPA because I think that'll make more sense. So it's always changing. I think every so often they might change the prereqs for it. But when I was doing it, one of the big things is you needed to get 150 credits in order to become a CPA. And a lot of the times, right, when you go to college, that's a 4-year program. You usually only graduate with like 120 credits. So
Okay.
a lot of the time, a lot of accounting students will either get like a master's degree, or sometimes you can also do community college classes to get those remaining credits, which is what I did because I didn't really think I wanted to get my master's. And honestly, if someone's thinking about going into accounting, I would recommend getting those extra credits at just community college because it saves you a lot of money, to be honest.
Sure. Okay.
So that's one of the prerequisites. And then, of course, you have to take the CPA exam. So that consists of, when I was taking it, it was 4 sections. So we had FAR, which is like financial accounting, and then you had tax, audit, and then BEC, which is more like, I think, cost accounting. But I know now I think the exam has changed a little bit where you might take a different exam where it's more specialized and you get to kind of pick which one. But don't quote me on that because I don't know if that's exactly right.
That's
But
okay. That's
yeah,
okay.
at the
But you need to become a certified public accountant. You need to take standardized tests that are quite
yes,
rigorous.
yes. Like it took me, I think, and I got lucky because I passed all of mine mostly on the first try. So I think it took me a little over a year from starting to study to when I passed my last exam. So and again, like it can take years because it is a very difficult exam and it's a lot. So
It's given over several days. Each part is a day, is a section, is a day. So
yeah.
it's given you have to take 4 sections when you took it.
Yeah, so when I took it, what I did was you study for one exam, you'll sign up and go to a testing center, and then you'll take the exam, and then you won't find out your score right away. You have to wait. I think I waited usually like maybe at most a couple weeks to find out my score. But while you're kind of waiting for your score, you could start studying for another section if
Okay.
you feel confident that you passed, and then that's kind of how it works. So
Okay.
it would take like months in between
And
potentially.
were you going to school? Were you working at that time? You finished your credits. I'm assuming you finished the 150 prerequisites, and then you started studying, obviously, probably concomitantly.
Yeah, so what I did because I knew I wanted my CPA, because I think, in my opinion, like having a CPA was more valuable than having like my master's degree. What I did was while I was taking like my extra credits at community college, I was studying for the CPA at the same exact time because
Wow.
I also knew a lot of people told me like try to pass your CPA before you start work. And that's like 100% true because I had to take my last section while I was working at Ernst Young, and it was very difficult to
Right.
study and work at the same time.
So that's really good advice.
Yeah.
So while you're in the student mode, take your CPA because once you're
Yep.
in the real world, you have to juggle your day-to-day responsibilities, plus you're
Yeah.
working hard to get promoted, and you
Yes.
have to study for your CPA
Yes.
section exam.
Yes, you have to essentially have a very high level like commitment to it if that's what you're going to do. Because for me, it was either I'd wake up at like 5 and start studying, or I'd
Wow,
have to
5
study.
a.m.
Yeah. And but like the problem is, like, I'm sure lots of people know, like the big four and Ernst and Young, you're very busy all the time. Like you always have work and you have things called busy season, right?
Right.
And during those times, you don't really have time to study. And like even after just a long day of work, I think honestly, the last thing I wanted to do was
Sure.
study.
Of course.
That's why, if I was talking to someone who's thinking about accounting, like I would tell them, if you're going to do the CPA exam, you need to try to do it before you start work. Like I delayed my start date at EY just to make sure I can study for my CPA.
That's really good advice. What are the top four? The top Ernst and Young is one of them.
Yeah, so I would say it's Deloitte and then PricewaterhouseCooper, but people call it like PwC, and then it's Ernst and Young, and then there's KPMG.
Wow, fantastic. Now, you brushed over this. You said you felt having a CPA certification was
Mhm.
different than having a master's in accounting.
Yeah,
And you recommend, what is the difference? Let's say I took a master's in accounting or just majored in accounting in undergrad, and then I
yeah,
get a job. What is the
yes.
differentiation for the students listening?
So I will say the reason why I feel like as an accountant, the CPA is pushed a lot is because if you decide to stay in public accounting, which is again like the EY, the Deloittes, um, in order to be promoted to manager, you have to have your CPA. You cannot be a manager in auditing without your CPA. So a lot of the times that's why it's just pushed because I think, when people graduate college, they usually want to start like at an auditing firm or a big firm like the big four. So that's why they keep asking, like, okay, maybe you should get your CPA because again, if they obviously want you to stay at the firm. So if you have your CPA, then one day you can make manager. But if you just going to be able to get to that spot.
You froze for just a little bit.
Oh,
I'm sorry. You said
okay.
in order to get promoted, you
Yeah.
need a CPA.
Yes. And like public accounting, again, so like in the firms like Deloitte and EY, in order to become manager, you have to have your CPA.
And you were driven, right? You wanted
Yeah.
that. And so we'll talk about different options, but when you finally worked at EY or Ernst and Young, you
Mhm.
already had in your mind, I'm going to get
Yeah.
promoted. You had a, and you kind of brushed through this. That's where you started, and you quickly got promoted within 2 years, correct?
Yes. So I kind of, yeah, brushed over that. But essentially, when you start at like a firm, again, like Ernst and Young, usually you're like a staff, which is basically the a B start position, right? Usually you'll be in that position for 2 years, and then most of the time you'll just get promoted to senior. However, for me, because I worked on such a large job and I was doing very well on that job, they promoted me a little bit earlier than most. So I had gotten, I only worked at Ernst and Young for 2 years, but I still had my senior experience on that job because of my like early promotion.
Great, great. Do they give you, I would think, added salary, right, when you become senior, but they
Yes,
also give you more responsibility, right? You started managing lower
yes,
entry level accountants. Is that who you were managing?
yes. So once you become senior, expectation is you will be training your staff below you. And again, you also have your own work to do. So sometimes a lot of people say at firms like this, like seniors have it the worst because not only do you have to help the staff, but you also have your own work that you need to do, but then you also need to like, I guess, manage up, if that makes sense. So you kind of have to manage like your managers and senior managers and partners' expectations. So it's just,
Right.
it can be a lot. I'll
It
say
could
that.
be like you're sandwiched in. And
Yeah.
I think when I spoke to you during your eye exam, you mentioned you're also accountable for the junior accountants'
Yes.
results. In other words, if they make mistakes, it's your mistakes.
Yes, exactly. Because again, you're reviewing their work. So if something's wrong and you didn't catch it, like they're not going to blame the first year staff. They would probably blame the senior. So
All right. So how many people did you manage now 2 years out? How many people were that?
yeah. So I think I had two jobs I was on. So most of the time I was like managing maybe two staffs at a time. It 2 or 3, we'll say that, which is
Okay, great.
doable, but
And then you moved on to Quest, right?
Yes.
and you're already senior at that point.
Yes, this is a bit of a different job because I actually
Sure.
in this role now I don't have to manage anyone below me. It's just me and my manager.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different than how it was like at Ernst Young.
Yeah, but you have a lot more. Can you tell us about the presentations and things like that? I would
Yeah,
think you have to be factual, you have to be accurate, but you also have to get the message across on how we're doing. What is the
yeah,
trend and things like that. So
yes.
do your social skills matter at that point?
Yes, I would say, when I was interviewing for the job, what was told to me during the interview process is the difference between like a financial analyst and a senior financial analyst is the presentation aspect and public speaking. Because as an FA, I'll use that acronym, but you don't have to do any sort of presentations, but as a senior, that's the expectation that you're able to present to other people and get like your point across. And I think something that's important also at Quest is that again, we're on our little team. So when we're presenting to each other on our team, a lot of what we're saying makes sense, right? Because we
Sure.
know the terms, we
The-
understand the accounting. But when we're presenting to like our regional business partners who are in finance, they might not know everything that we know. So one of the important aspects of my job too is the way I explain things to them, like trying to explain it in terms they'll understand and not try to confuse them. So I think that's an important aspect of my job too, that's kind of glossed over sometimes.
Yeah, and I've noticed that about you since you were younger. And that's why I
Mhm.
wanted you to talk because you can't study for social skills. You can't
Yes.
study for these skills that they told you needed to be in
Yeah.
a managerial status. Is there, if I was just the financial analyst, the FA that you call it,
Yeah.
is it difficult for me to move up the company if I don't have presentation skills? Will I stay kind of isolated doing analysis, or can I also move up if I just don't like presenting?
I think I don't want to say you can't move up if you don't like presenting, but I think the nice thing about my job is we give opportunities to FAs to present, maybe not exactly what the decks that
Okay.
we present to our regional business partners or like our controller and director, but we give them opportunities in like internal meetings that we have to kind of showcase their public speaking skills. I will say though, yes, I think it does take a small into like it's taken into account when they're looking at, okay, if we're going to promote them or not, if they are able to present.
Okay.
But I don't want to say ever that like if you can't
Sure.
do any public speaking, like you're not going to get promoted. But
Great. Great.
it's good to have practice. I'll say that.
100%. And you can't start practicing, I think, at 25 or 22.
Yeah.
You got to practice, if not in high school or middle school, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
before we jump into your personal academic path, what other opportunities are there for you as a CPA if you wanted to go? Is there private practice? Like, what other opportunities? You took a corporate route, correct?
Yes. So again, like I started, you can do auditing or tax at a big four or public accounting firm. It doesn't have to be big four. You can do that. If you have your CPA again, you can get promoted to manager. Or what I'm doing now is I started in that, but now I'm more into like what we call industry accounting, which is like where I'm actually doing the accounting for my own company versus like if you're at a big four or PA firm, you do auditing and tax for a client.
Right.
So you could do something like that. And then, you can also, open your own practice. A lot of people I know have open practices to do like taxes. Like my first internship in college, I worked at like a small PA firm, but that was like very much they opened their own public accounting firm. So that's something you could
Okay.
potentially do as well. I think also there's probably other accounting, but for right now, that's what comes as
That's
a
what comes to mind.
yeah.
Okay, great. So if you want autonomy, you're business oriented, you may open up your own PA, public accounting
Yeah,
firm.
you can
That's where I
open.
go drop off my taxes.
Yes,
They do
exactly.
the taxes. Great.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Or you could work corporate, and there's many different types of corporate CPAs.
Yes, exactly. Or like again, I do like actual accounting. You can do internal audit at a company, and sometimes even too, like a lot of accountants will maybe try to pivot into a more finance role.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
I know like my company now, and even at Ernst and Young, they have a lot of like, I guess, how do I explain it? Like you can do a lot of internal transfers, try out different programs, or try out different departments. So I would say like again, like having an accounting background, I think it's easier to kind of go into more finance roles versus if you try to do vice versa and do finance into accounting
I
because
agree with that. I think that's
yeah,
important. A lot of students are majoring in business or
Yeah.
finance, but once you have a solid accounting background and deeply understand a P&L, profit loss statement, etc., you could really branch out to many different non-accounting areas, but vice
Yes.
versa may not be true.
Yes, because I feel like with accounting, right, there's a lot of nuances, and I honestly think like accounting is the backbone of a business, right? Like you're always, any company you go to, they're going to
That's
need
exactly right.
a department. So I think it's just valuable, like a valuable skill set and knowledge to have. And that's kind of why I think partly why I also like went into accounting for my undergrad.
Okay. So before we leave this section, can you give me a average salary of a CPA? Not your salary, just average. There's probably extremes. There's low and there's about average for someone
Yeah.
thinking about a career in as a certified public accounting, maybe corporate. What would they expect to make on
Yeah.
average?
Yeah, so I think it depends, right? If you're just going into accounting, and you have your CPA. So I'm going to give an example. Let's say you
Sure.
do decide to start in public accounting. I know that can probably range from like maybe 80 to 90K for your 80, let's say 80 to 100K actually,
Wow.
it's kind of staff level, right?
Sure.
And then once you probably make to senior, you'll make six figures for sure.
Okay.
Especially again, if you're working in like a PA firm. So I'm going to say like you would probably start around 80K and then you
Okay.
probably work your way up to like over six figures for sure.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your path now.
Mhm.
Where'd you go to school undergraduate? Yeah, your undergraduate degree.
Yeah. So I went to Michigan State
Oh,
University.
wow.
Yeah.
Did you know did you enter as a freshman that you wanted accounting or some type of math related field?
I think when I went to MSU, I knew I wanted to do something business related. I didn't know what yet. So the nice thing about MSU with their business school program is that you take a bunch of different classes, like business related classes. And then I think my sophomore year, you had to apply to your major, like what you think you wanted to major in. So the nice thing is I got to try a bunch of different classes and potentially to see what I'd be interested in. So I would say I didn't know I wanted to do accounting at first, but
Okay.
as I've taken more classes, I realized I kind of liked my accounting classes. So I think that's kind of what steered me in the direction.
Did you have a mentor, an upper class person, someone outside of school that kind of you just said, I kind of like what she or he does?
To be perfectly honest, not really. I
Okay.
know my cousin, my older cousin, she worked at Deloitte, so she majored in accounting and everything. And then now she works at Tiffany and Co. She was my honestly the only person I really knew who was like in
A
accounting.
little bit.
Yeah, but
Okay.
to be perfectly honest, like I didn't really have anyone who told me you should major in accounting. It was just more so doing my own research and seeing in my classes, like hearing what maybe my professors would say about accounting. And I think again, my school offered a lot of those kind of counselings.
Courses, business
Yeah.
courses.
Yeah, to help students decide what they want to
So
do.
you were in the business program.
Yeah, so I was in the business school and then yeah, sophomore year we had to like do this whole and you know, in MSU too for accounting, I think because the accounting program at MSU is like pretty good, you had to have like certain GPA to get into that accounting program. So that was another deciding factor for me too. Like when I was taking my business classes, I was like, okay, I think I'm leaning towards accounting. So I'm gonna make sure like, okay, I keep my grades up because I want to make sure I can get into the program. So yeah.
That's really good advice. Did you do any internships or so in
Yeah.
between semesters or in between summer break?
Yeah, so I did, I think my junior year, the winter semester, I did like a tax internship, like during like traditional like tax season. So I actually took a semester off of school to do that, so I can work at that full time and even work some like overtime.
Wow. Was that
Yeah.
part of the school or you just did on your own? You said, I'm going to
No,
earn some money to see if I like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
It was your decision.
yeah. My decision to take it, it wasn't anything like the school required. I was like, I want to do an internship, I want to make money, and I think a lot of people had done that before too, where they would like take a semester off and then just like make it up in the summer or something so that they can do this internship.
And companies are open to that during tax time. They need hands,
Yeah.
they need help. And
Yes.
you were able to do that. And then they hired you knowing that you're probably going to leave in about 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Yes, like they were looking for students to help kind of prepare tax returns, especially maybe like 1040s, for example. Those are like the individual tax returns a little bit easier. But they like knew like okay, these people, we just really need them to help during tax season. And then maybe next year when tax season rolls around again, if they're still a student, like maybe they'll do an internship again. So the company I worked for, I actually did an internship, I think I did for like 2 years, but basically it was like I helped out both tax seasons essentially.
And one of those two, you went to school also, or did you take 2 semesters
Yes.
off?
Yeah, no, I just took the 1 semester off, and then the next year when I came back, I did
There we
it
go.
more like part-time, yeah, because they
Very
liked me so much, so they were like, "Oh, we'll, like, work out a part-time schedule for you."
That's so nice. That's so nice. And then, so high school, did you still think business? You must have been because you applied to Michigan State,
Yeah.
and then you were, what turned you on to business? Kind of, in
Mhm.
high school, there's so many students that really don't know what they want, and parents and doctors are saying, "What are you going to major in? What are you going to major in?" So,
Yeah.
what was your where was your mind at 11th, 12th grade?
I think at that time, I was trying to think of, like, the skill sets I had at the time. So, for example, nursing had crossed my mind of things I
Okay.
really wanted to look into, but then I realized I might not be as much of a people person as I think I am. And I think honestly, just business to me, in terms of thinking like how I was doing in school, just seemed to make the most sense to me. Again, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in business, but I think that just interests me the most. And most of like my elective classes I took in high school were business related. Like I took AP microeconomics and macroeconomics. So I think that kind of taking all those classes kind of steered me in the direction of business. But it isn't to say that I didn't have other thoughts of maybe I should do nursing or maybe I should be, I don't know, a software engineer or something like that.
Right. Very, very good. So, if you were to look back now
Mhm.
and give advice to your younger self, it's very stressful these days to be a
Yeah.
teenager and college student. With all the social media, everybody seems virtually doing better than you. They're getting into good colleges. They know what they
Mhm.
seemingly think. They know everybody knows what they're going to do except yourself. What advice would you give yourself now that you're older and more established?
Yeah, I definitely will say I would at least tell my younger self, like maybe because I was in high school, maybe I wasn't the best student. So I wish I could have gone back and told myself maybe study a little more. But I think at the same time, I'm doing okay where I am now. So I'm like, maybe I would tell my high school self, like, everything works out. Like, you don't need to have everything figured out because I do remember, like, being a junior or senior in high school, everyone's like, what do you think you're going to major in? Or where
Mm,
do you think you're going to go to school? And you just don't know. But I
yeah.
feel like you shouldn't pressure yourself to know because, yeah, at that age, like you are so young. I can't imagine going back now and having to try to make those types of decisions. So I definitely, would tell myself, like, everything will be okay. Like, you'll get it figured out. It's, just take it one day at a time, I think, because a lot of the time being in high school, again, like you were mentioning, there's pressures everywhere. But everything's gonna work out because I also have believed now that, like, you can always change, aspects of your life as you get older. Like, maybe for me, example, like, maybe I don't wanna stay in accounting forever. That doesn't just because I majored in accounting doesn't mean, like, this is my
Yeah.
career. Like
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to stay at this firm or any firm for that.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
such great advice. I could tell you I've been doing this for some time now, and this advice you gave has come up again and again. Things will work out. You
Yeah,
know, but when you're 17, 16, it feels like everybody has figured it out except you. And
yeah,
you should know, and you feel so old. You said you're so young, but when you're 17, you feel so old.
yeah.
But it's nice to know, like you were thinking of nursing. And by the way, in healthcare, 2 plus 2 doesn't always equal 4. So I'm glad you went into accounting. The formulas don't, people are not formulas. And you do have
Yeah,
to have some type of social skills, which you
yes.
do tremendously, but it's different when you're
Mhm.
working with patients as opposed to when you're presenting and doing
Yes.
business like deals and things of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew at that time when I was at that age, I was more on the introverted side. I didn't think I would be able to be more people facing like a job like you have, Dr. D. So like
Sure.
that's little things you think about too. And I think I wish in high school too, I have to realize maybe don't compare yourself to other people because I think it was maybe a little disheartening, right? You see other people getting into better schools and better jobs. But at the end of the day, I just kind of would have to tell myself, like, again, don't compare yourself to others. Maybe they're just more they're more intelligent than you, right? So of course, maybe they'll get a better job or something, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, at that age, it was so easy to compare yourself to others. And like, if you're, and like trying to figure out, what you want to do with your life. But I think I would, again, want to tell myself, like, you don't need to be like others. Just figure out
Yeah.
your own path and don't worry
Yeah.
about anything else.
Yeah, that's good advice. And you talked about intelligence. And one of the things I've learned with time is there's
Mhm.
so many different type of intelligences. Like we
Yeah.
think of IQ, right? That person is smarter. First
Yeah.
of all, we're a lot smarter than we feel. We're our biggest critics.
Yeah.
Number two, someone may be very smart in math, but
Hmm.
not have common sense skills. We've met
Yeah.
those type of people.
Yeah.
Some people have great common sense skills and social skills, but are not good with analytics. Um,
Yes.
I found you as a young woman, as a very young student. You were always outgoing. Always, you may say
Mhm.
you were shy, but
Yeah.
maybe compared to your peers, but you're
Mhm.
always very social. And I think that's something I try to promote, that you can't study social skills. And you can
Yes.
see here you are, you're so analytic. You're a CPA. You deal with numbers all day and spreadsheets, but yet you still need to look at someone and convince them what you're saying they should believe, and not only believe but take action on it. Not easy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I will say that came with a lot of practice. I think, as you get more experience doing that, once, in college, you'll get experience doing that. And then in your actual career, it will always get easier, but it's just something you can't ever stop doing because, again, it's just, you can always improve on it. And I still find myself, even right now, making little mistakes when I'm presenting, but it's, things like that I'll discuss with my manager to improve for next time.
That's great. Well, I can't thank you enough. Caitlyn, you've helped me. You've helped
Yeah.
so many others. Just your statement of you don't have to have it all figured out in high school and even college, but you
Yeah.
always strive. And you say you were lucky. I'm going to tell you now, maybe you were, but luck had very little to do with your success. You've always been driven.
Mhm.
You could hear it in your
Yeah.
voice, and your managers noted that. And I think that's really good. Where do you think your ambition like that came from? Was it from your parents? Is it from sports? Is it from, because you've always been goal oriented? You've been very ambitious. Am I correct in saying that?
I would say so. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But I wouldn't say like, so the nice thing is my parents, like, they never pressured me to go a certain direction with my career. They never really pressured me in school. It was basically my own self, knowing I had the responsibility. And one of the stories I like to tell is when I started my freshman year at MSU, and I'm sure big school. I wasn't very school focused my first semester, and one of these classes I was taking was a very Excel heavy course that I was not doing well in. So I ended up failing that class. And I remember
Wow.
when I saw my GPA for the first time after that first semester, it hit me. I was like, I need to like get my priority straight. And after that, for me, it changed. Like school became my priority. I ended up finishing at MSU with like a 3.9 GPA. Like
Wow.
that changed for me when I just had that reality check.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a success story and a lesson right there. You
Yeah.
failed. Yeah, that
Yes.
word
I
sounds
failed.
so bad, but you need to
Yeah.
fail in life. We fail all the
Yeah.
time, but you literally failed, which must have been just
Mhm.
heartbroken, and yet that drove you to the career you have today.
Yes. And that for me, like I had to retake the class too. So I was like, I'm not gonna let that failure that I had my first semester like dictate where I am going with my life. And that just, again, it was my motivation, I think, to try so much harder. And I think it pushed me, just even now thinking about it, like I was so committed to my CPA exam. There are so many people I know who are like, you know what, like I'm gonna study for it, but don't actually sit down and have the commitment to it. I remember like that year in a couple months where it was just studying all the time. Like I would take my CPA books on vacation with me. Like,
Oh man.
so I think, yeah. So I think from that point on, it's just always been like I'm pushing myself, but at least it's pushing myself in the right direction and it's really helping my career. So I look forward to see where I'll be going in the next couple years. If I'm having this sort of attitude, hopefully I can try to make manager, even if it's not with
Oh,
my
you
company.
will. You will,
Yeah.
and beyond. And beyond, you will. Because of just what you said, you learned early on that you're responsible for your own
Yeah.
success and failure. And failure is
Yes.
fine as long as you learn from it, right?
Yes. exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That was
Caitlin,
not something my parents were like, had to like put pressure on me on. It was, I truly think it's like you need to do it for yourself. Like no one can tell you that. Like someone can tell you, right? Work hard, try to get good grades, but it's really like you need to have the ambition yourself.
and
So
that ambition comes from missteps.
yes, yes,
It really does.
yeah,
If you're always afraid to fall or, fail, you'll never achieve anything. So
yes,
it seems that that taught you a lifelong lesson.
yes. That's like my big lesson that I remember when I was first like interviewing for jobs. That was like the one story I loved sharing because I was so proud of it. Like
So you took a negative and you made it like a
yeah,
double positive, and you
yes,
knew they saw it in your transcript probably.
yes,
So you
yes,
hit it right on and say,
yeah,
"Hey, let me tell you about this." And they
yes,
probably love that because
yes.
in life we're always misstepping, and the key is learning from that.
Yes, 100%. I 100% agree with that. Like it's okay. And then again, if I'm telling younger people this, like don't feel the need like you have to be perfect and you can't make mistakes because I think, yeah, a big mistake like that, that's how you learn. Like that's
Yep.
where your life you feel like changes for you when you make
Yeah.
a mistake like that. And like I wish I honestly knew that when I was younger too, because again, you get into the habit of comparing yourself to others. And I think it's okay if you're not perfect. You can make mistakes and just learn from them.
Yep. And be your own self. Have the
Yes,
confidence to be your own self. Easier said than done. But,
yes.
this tremendous advice, the best advice, career advice actually came right now when you talked about the advice you give yourself. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Caitlin. This was just, I know we waited a few weeks to get this done. I know
Yeah.
you're very busy. We're probably at tax time, and I know you're always busy in the beginning of the month. But I
Yeah.
am telling you now, this interview has helped so many students and young adults. So I appreciate so much your help. And I guarantee you, if you were a stock, I would invest in you.
Yeah.
You're going to be extremely successful. You're so young in your career that you're going
Mhm.
to be extremely successful. So thank you very much.
Of course. It was on. I love talking about this, Dr. D. I'm like very excited sometimes when I get to give people advice about my life and like career and everything. So this was
Yeah.
honestly a pleasure.
Yeah, and it was much more than career advice. It was life advice. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I truly learned from it. So thank you so much. And to everyone out there, I hope you benefited as much as I did. Until next time, have a great week. Bye bye. I'm Dr. Nick Despotidis, and in this podcast, I sit down with my current and former patients, people I've known since childhood, to talk about their careers, the challenges they faced, and the choices that shape their lives. I've always been intrigued by patients sharing their story with me in the exam room, and I came up with the idea of this podcast to share these gems with my current patients because I feel strongly parents and students can benefit from their peers' experience.